When something doesn't go your way, what is generally the first thing that you reach for first? Is it pointing the finger at the other person or a reason to grow? If you're honest, you're probably shifting more towards blame immediately. Like blame is fast and it feels good in the moment, right? You can say the teacher didn't explain it, or my partner didn't show up, or the coach is playing favorites. My boss is impossible to please. And while those thoughts aren't evil, they are protective. And your brain is basically like your brain is trying to keep your confidence from being bruised. And while I understand, I want to let you know that protection comes at a cost. If the problem is always outside of you, if you always keep finding others to blame, then the solution is also always going to be outside of you. The solution is always going to feel like it's out of reach because it's always somebody else's to fix, not your own. And that means that you're always going to feel stuck because you're waiting on somebody else to change before your life gets better. You're always going to be living in what we call a victim mindset. And I want to submit to you that there is another way of going about it. You can trade that quick relief of blaming for the long-term power of learning. And you probably like, well, what does learning have to do with it? If it's their fault, then it's their fault. And I understand that. Trust me, I get it. But the shift doesn't require perfection. It doesn't require guilt, and it doesn't even require some fake positivity. But it does require one habit, and that habit is reflecting on every outcome, looking inward before you looking outward. Here's what I want to do to reframe this. This reframe unlocks a mentality that outcomes are feedback, not the inverted. You ever watch somebody or know somebody who's been on trial for a crime or a misdemeanor or something like that, and they were found guilty? Those are what we consider verdicts. The verdict is they're innocent. The verdict is that they're guilty. Verdict is that you're right. The verdict is that you're wrong. The thing is, the outcomes are feedback, not verdicts. If you look at feedback as a way for you to improve, then you'll end up having a better chance of receiving constructive criticism without feeling so hurt or feeling like you're attacked. And this can be as far as a quiz score, this can be a practice result, this can be a job interview, this can be just a tense conversation with a parent. Because I want you to understand that these are not final judgments on your work. They tell you these are, let's just call them dashboards. And these dashboards are basically telling you what your last choices produced. I don't want you to get to the point of your life where you feel as though it's hopeless to do anything else or it's hopeless to try again when you don't have to. The reason why we have mentors, the reason why we have teachers, the reason why we have coaches is because somebody else has already gone ahead of you, done the work, and is willing to pour into you so that you don't have to make the same mistakes that we did. Experience is, and take this from somebody who's experienced quite a bit for my age. I'm 30 years old. Somebody who has experienced a lot. Experience is the most expensive thing that you'll ever pay for in this lifetime. So when you listen to a mentor, when you listen to your parent, when you listen to a teacher, they're actually helping you shorten that learning curve, shorten that gap, shorten that problem or that experience for you so that you don't have to experience it, so that you can be wise enough to learn from other people's mistakes, but also from their success. You want to copy what other people have done to be successful, not what other people have done to fail or to not be where they could be in life. You have to understand that when you change your choices, you can change your future. And when you can accept that, you stop acting like a victim, or you stop acting like a defendant trying to build their case. And you start acting like a scientist who's running experiments. Now, if you don't like science, I understand science was not my favorite subject either. But running experiments means there's always a chance to do it over again. There's always a chance for better. And you may be asking, well, why does this matter so much? And it's because life rewards course correctors, not excuse collectors. Let me say it again. Life rewards course correctors, not excuse collectors. Because I want you to think about the places or the spaces where people actually improve the fastest. Musicians, they record practice sessions and they listen back to the track. You have athletes, they watch the game film. You have chefs who taste and adjust. You have readers, they annotate, they summarize, they reread with a purpose. And in every one of these cases, growth comes from looking at the outcome without flinching, without taking it personal, without pointing fingers at somebody else. They're asking what created it. They're asking themselves what created it. And then they try a better move the next time. They try something else the next time that will give them a better result. So let me paint this picture for you. Imagine a loop. You have the event, your interpretation of that event, the action, and the outcome. So most of us only focus on the last piece of that loop. We attach a story to it. We say the outcome was bad, so I'm bad. We immediately attach the outcome to our value, and that's why we end up thinking bad about ourselves. We say, I messed up when I was reading, so in that case, I'm stupid. And that's a stretch. You're probably not stupid. You probably just messed up one time. So you have to realize that the power actually sits in that middle part. The power actually sits in your interpretation. When you change your interpretation and when you change your actions, then the outcome will change. If you say, okay, I bombed that presentation or I failed that test, I bombed that presentation because I failed at speaking, or I'm terrible at speaking, or I failed that test because I didn't study. It then becomes, I spoke without a plan. I didn't practice any transitions. I didn't check my timing. I didn't plan. I didn't study. I didn't look over the things where I was weak as at. I stayed up later than I should have. And all of that can then translate into, so the next time I have to make a presentation or the next time I take a test, then I'll plan, I'll practice, I'll time check. And the thing is, with the same outcome, but with a different interpretation, then because of our actions, because of that interpretation, our actions will then change. So the way you interpret things, the way you see things, the way you process things changes what you end up doing. So if you want a different outcome, you have to have a different input. If you want a different outcome, you have to have a different input. So that means how you process it, how you take it all in. If you change that, and then which leads to you changing your actions, because you can't just change the interpretation but not change your actions. If you keep the same actions, if you keep the same input, you're going to get the same result. So, but if you change how you look at the situation and then change the actions associated with how you what happened to get you that last outcome, when you change the input, when you change your actions, then the input eventually changes. And it actually leads you in this realm of I can always get better. This isn't the end all be all. There's always room for improvement, which allows you to come from a space of humility. It allows you to come from a space of I can do this, or there's hope for me, there's room for me to get better. I can always get better. If I'm good now, I can actually get better than this. It only goes up from here. And so let me give you a few examples that I have right here. So let's just say for school, you studied for hours, but your test grade is still low. So here's what blame would say: the teacher is just writing trick questions. But what learning says is that, okay, so my notes were fact only. The test asks why and how. So I need to practice explaining concepts in my own words and solving new problems, not just copying definitions. So now, after that interpretation of coming from a place of learning, you'll now add a 10-minute teach it back drill in your study routine. So even if you studied, just because you studied, if you just look at a surface level, you probably won't end up changing anything. But if you take the time to look a little bit deeper into it and be like, okay, this is what the test was actually asking me for. This is what I actually had when I was studying. So it's not the fact that the studying itself is bad, but it's what I study. So let me change what I study. Let me change how I study. And then on the next test, I'll be able to do it better. Let me see if I can go back to my teacher and ask to take a retake, a retest. Some of them will, and some of them won't. But at least you ask. Ask the question, because you never know what the answer might be. And then after you do that, you'll then be able to see if that change made an improvement. Let's just do work or internships now. So you sent a resume in, but you never heard back. Blame would say that nobody's hiring, but learning would say my resume lists tasks, but not results. I need to show impact and change it or tailor it to a specific role. Also, I didn't follow up. So that interpretation then leads you to rewrite a couple of bullet points and highlight outcomes, as well as schedule a polite follow-up email or note or call or whatever. Let's go to relationships. So a conversation with a parent. So whether it's your mama, there's your daddy, your grandpa, your auntie, whoever, a conversation with an adult that's in your family turned into an argument. Blame would say they never listen, but learning says, okay, I led with accusing them or accusations instead of curiosity. And parents, you can do the same thing. I led with accusations instead of curiosity. Next time, I'll start with, here's what I'm feeling, and I'm hoping we can figure out something together. And then because of that, I'm hoping we can figure this out together. And I'll choose a better time that's not right after work or not before work. And then let's take a personal goals example. So you plan to read 20 pages a night, but you quit after day 3. This is a consistency thing. Blame would just say, okay, I'm just lazy. But learning will say, I picked up a book 2 levels above my current grade or my current comprehension level, my current status, my current stamina. And I was reading it before bed when I was tired. So instead, let me try something different. Next time, let me try 10 pages instead of 20 pages in the morning when I have more energy or when I'm just waking up. And let me write this down on a sticky note so I don't forget. So, do you see the pattern there in all of those examples? There's reflection that doesn't deny other people's faults, but it also doesn't deny real barriers. It is actually just simply starting with the only lever that you can control, which is what your next choice is. And so I want you to take this and really think about some of the things that you've experienced over just the last week. And I want you to just use these simple, repeatable tools that you can come back to this video, save them, write them down, do it, whatever you want to. So the first thing that I want you to take note of is what I'm calling the 5-minute outcome replay. So this is right after any meaningful result. This can be a quiz. This can be practice. This can be a shift at work. This can be a conversation. This can be a workout, whatever. I want you to set a timer for 5 minutes and answer these 5 questions with these 5 prompts in writing. What happened? Just list the facts. What did I do before and during? What worked, even if it's just a little bit? What didn't work and why didn't it work? And what's one tweak that I can do next time? So let me repeat those. What happened? Just state the facts. What did I do before and during? What worked, even if it was just a little bit? What didn't work and why didn't it work? And then what's one tweak I'll try next time? And the reason why this works is because your brain learns from specificity. Just saying do better isn't a plan, but preview the chapter before reading it and writing one question before you dive in, that is. Because now you have something that you're doing that you can expect to do. The next one is a control map. And this is where you'll draw 3 columns on a scrap piece of paper or just in your notes. You can create it on your notes. You can do a Word doc, Google Doc, whatever. You'll have could control, could influence, and couldn't control. So could control is my preparation, my attitude, my schedule, my request for help, and my focus habits. Those 5. My preparation, my attitude, my schedule, my request for help, and my focus habits. Under could influence, you'll have team dynamic, clarity of instructions, meeting agenda, practice intensity. And under couldn't control, these are things that you wouldn't be able to control: surprise pop quizzes, someone else's mood, last minute schedule changes, and the weather. Now you can move your energy accordingly and stack 80% of your effort into the first column and 20% of your effort into the second column. So you're going to put 80% of your effort into the things that you can control. And you're going to put 20% of your effort into the things that you can influence. None of that energy is going to be spent in the third column, in the things that you can't control. You'll be shocked how quickly you sense your sense of agency or your sense of urgency grows when you feed it. And then the last one is going to be a language flip, or not the last one, the next to last one is going to be a language flip. So you have to understand that your words coach your brain. And so if you swap blame phrases for learning phrases in that moment, you'll find that you'll start teaching your brain how to think differently. So try these. If you normally say, well, they didn't tell me, change it to I didn't ask for clarity. I didn't ask questions. I didn't ask for more clarification. If you generally say, well, that was unfair, say, well, that was unexpected. How will I prepare for surprises next time? For I'm just not good at this. Try, I'm not skilled at this yet. I'm not good at this just yet. So, what's the first thing that I can do or that I can focus on to improve? And then if you normally say, I had no time, say, I didn't protect my time. I didn't plan my time. So where can I put 20 minutes of focus at tomorrow? Or where would I put 20 focused minutes tomorrow? And you can post these on your lock screen, you can post these on your wall, you can post these in the community and start reading them aloud as daily rewires to your brain. Because the more you see it, the more you remember it, the more it becomes a part of who you are and part of your routine. And then the last one is a 2 sentence log. So at the end of each day, you can write 2 quick lines. This can be a win line and a lesson line. The win line, you name one outcome that went well and the choice that created it. For your lesson line, you'll name one outcome that didn't and the change that and the choice that you'll change. So let me say that again. The win is one outcome that went well and the choice that created it. And then the lesson is one outcome that didn't go well and the choice that you'll change. So here's an example. A win would be I understood the article that I was reading because I previewed the headings first. The lesson is that I rushed the math problems, and tomorrow I'll cover the answers and explain my steps out loud. You want to keep this log in your notebook or in your notes app or somewhere where you can access it daily. This doubles as one, a literacy exercise, but it's also you're identifying the cause and effect and you're writing clearly, which are all core reading and writing skills that actually spill into every subject. So when you get good at this in life, all your other ones will actually start getting better, which is a nice little win. So once you do all of those things, once you start doing these practices and these exercises, they start to blend character, which is humility and ownership, with life skills of planning and time management, as well as literacy, which is reflective writing. All of these things are simple, but they compound in you becoming a better person. And so, disclaimer, as you practice, I want you to expect discomfort because reflection is honest, not harsh, but sometimes the truth does hurt. So, it's going to be uncomfortable, but it doesn't have to be painful. You will notice that there are things that you wish that you had done differently, which is good because that means you're awake. You're not just living life passively. You're not just living life vicariously. Just don't confuse accountability for a self attack. Don't confuse accountability for a self attack. Accountability says, I chose X, it produced Y, and I'll choose differently to get Z. Self attack says, I'm trash. I'm terrible. I'm stupid. I'm dumb. One builds a future while the other one buries it. Choose life, don't choose death. And just a final note on fairness. Are there any unfair situations? Yes, absolutely. Life isn't fair. Names get mispronounced, rules change mid game or midlife. People overlook you, but reflection doesn't pretend that those things don't matter. Reflection doesn't pretend that those things don't happen. It just simply refuses to let them be your ceiling. It simply refuses to acknowledge that this barrier is the height of where you're going to be at. It acknowledges the barrier, but it still asks, okay, what is the best move that I can take from here? The question becomes your power. The question is power because the question returns you back to the driver's seat. And so if you're listening to this, if you're watching this as a student and you're tired of feeling behind, or if you're a young adult that's juggling classes, that's juggling work, that's juggling family, I want you to hear this. You are not your last outcome. You are not the result of the last thing that you did. You are your next choice. Reflection is how you choose better. And the reflection is how you choose better faster. So I want you guys to try this tonight. Pick one moment from today, run either the 5 minute outcome replay or draw a control map or just write 2 sentences down before bed. And that's it. No speeches, no drama, just small, steady steps from blaming to learning. And if this resonates with you, I want you to keep going with us. I want you to tune in every week because we're going to be dropping these type of videos every single week in the literacy lab, but also just on YouTube and everything like that. So feel free to comment, subscribe, share with somebody who you think this will help. And hopefully you will start seeing that as you implement these practices, as you implement these exercises, that life is not as hard as it seems. And you don't have to wait on other people to change in order for your life to get better. So hopefully this helped you. Hopefully this blessed you. See you guys on the next upload. Peace.